Hi, welcome to the Winners Find a Way show and podcast with your host, Trent M. Clark, 3-time World Series coach, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, having started 12 companies, coach to the 1%, and an international speaker. This show is going to be your go-to podcast for facing adversity, being inspired, and overcoming obstacles, all from the best in the world, business, sports, and leadership. Hate the crappy ingredients in many beverages and energy drinks? Rebellious Infusions are the go-to functional beverage. They have 5 or fewer plant-based organic ingredients, no sugar, no calories, loaded with antioxidants to boost your immune system, and L-theanine for brain health. Rebellious Infusions are available at drinkrebellious.com. Rethink your drink. For 10% off of your next purchase, use the code 99999.
Yeah, well, I think, money doesn't matter if you don't have your health, right? And if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And to teach these kids how to maintain a strong mental health every day. And what does that mean? Because sometimes if your lack of sleep, which is number 2, if your serotonin levels are low and you don't have a good sleep hygiene and you don't go through, protect your sleep, then that can start an addiction. It can start depression. It can start overeating, right? So keeping these basic blocks that you need to get through your everyday is, I think, the most important thing to teach our kids. And, when you're not feeling well inside, I don't have a lot of friends, but I have solid friends. I have 5 top girlfriends that I can call that will answer my call and talk me through anything, any time of the day, right? I don't need a lot of friends. I just need great friends. And I've created that for myself. And if something plays in my head or I can't get it out of my head, I am conditioned to pick up the phone and call them, run it by them. And they talk me right through it. And they go, okay, your problem, not your problem. Let it go. 5-minute problem, 5-hour problem, 5-year problem. So we have this little exercise that we can take each other through. And kids but I didn't learn that until as an adult, right? So as a kid, you just start burying all this stuff. And I'm really trying to tell my daughter, how to talk about it and let it out and get perspective on it, because they, in the teenage and the, junior high years, are just so tough. They're going through so many changes and they don't really even know who they are, what their style is, they don't know anything. But to keep that all inside, does create trauma. And, I believe that it's, issues in the tissues. So if you start to get an injury, an ache, a pain, something, I believe it's like something that you got to get out, and then that will release that pain, right? If your pain wasn't caused by an injury, because we have so many people are walking around with soft tissue injuries, soft tissue pain without an injury.
Yeah.
And they're just, your body is talking to them, and your body will try to talk to you, but you got to listen to it. And so to teach the kids how to master their computer, their mind, to teach them how to listen to their body as an athlete, I think that is the most important building blocks that we can give them. And, mental health it's a thing. We talk about it, but you do have to put that good food inside your body, God-made food, you need to replenish yourself. Recovery is just as important practice.
Yeah. It's a kinetic chain, right? Like everything is connected, and it's tough because the moment with the alcohol, any drug, prescription work, there's a cellular issue there that's going on. And of course, we don't notice it, right? We're not seeing it. We're not seeing any effect because we don't look at the cellular level, but yet it's being depleted immediately. And so that starts an issue in the kinetic chain. And so, I always feel like athletes have a level of tolerance for pain. You're used to sliding out and tearing up your shin or your knee, and I lost some skin. I'm going to put a Band-Aid on. It's going to be uncomfortable for a few days. Like discomfort is just not uncommon, when you're playing sports.
Physical pain.
Yeah. It's just, and I don't even know if it's pain. I think it's really discomfort. I would say pain is a little different. The question always is, are you injured or are you hurt? Are you hurt for a minute because that hurts, or are you injured? And I think those are 2 different conversations. And I think the challenge is that the John Q public, they give the same paid meds to, a woman who's never had done this, who's 57 years old, and gives the same prescription to a 22-year-old full-fledged adult athlete who's been through all this stuff. Wait a minute, man, he's not going to need a 40-day supply of pain meds. And like to ask him to take that is literally, to me, a challenge. Like that's a potential issue already, just given the lifestyle and everything else, because we know the effects of any, especially like a pain medication with any alcohol is a bad mix. I mean, it's all over the bottle, don't drink with this. And of course, but then we have the institutional issue of, hey, it's after a game and we all go grab a beer and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden it's almost habitual that the effect comes on. So it's a real dangerous market and it's scary. And obviously it's proved to be a massive issue in our country, other places as well. Let's talk a little bit about, let's come back to our decisions. I mean, when you're talking about quitting, we're quitting all sorts of things. When you get to win, what I may need to quit is something different than you need to quit, right? And I may need to quit staying up so late. I may need to quit pornography. I may need to quit, my yarn, sewing club because I'm spending, I'm up till 3 a.m. doing it. Like these things that we enjoy and love. And some men, it's watching sports. So I got to stay up for the 12 o'clock sports center and make sure I get every game score in, like the gambling. I mean, you talk about quitting, pick your poison, right? I mean, and there are, if we made a list of all the things to quit, it's a long list.
Yeah. So Trent, you bring up a really good point. I mean, it used to be just the basics, sex, drug, money, shopping, and the basics like that. But now addiction is anything that keeps you doing, that you keep doing in spite of consequences. And consequences could be time, health, money, ethics, right?
Relationships.
So if you're doing anything that crosses those lines and you continue to do it, then that can become an addiction. So what they're saying is, if you don't have an addiction yet, it's coming to a website near you. And that is the way that our technology is designed. I mean, the cell phone is a rattlesnake in your hand.
Oh,
it will bite you at some time. It's not if, it's just going to be when.
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't time block your usage of that, you will get addicted because maybe you're low on sleep that day. Maybe you didn't eat properly. Maybe you didn't reach out and hug your spouse or your child to get that connection, that oxytocin that our body is supposed to make from that love hormone. So therefore you're getting it on a scroll and these short clip videos, and they're so terrible for the brain, but they make your brain fire up. So you want to go back to that. And then you shut off like what's right here, your family, your friends, and what the live thing. There's 2 new terms I want to tell you about. One is called phubbing, and it's phone snubbing. And so it's when you're talking to somebody and they're looking down at their phone and you're, at a restaurant. So phubbing is a new term. And digiphrenia. Digiphrenia means to be in 2 places at once. So you're trying to be your digital self versus your physical self. So the 20-year-old that's sitting in the corner at Thanksgiving dinner is more worried about their online feed and posting than they are actually engaging with their family that's around them. So they're having digiphrenia, and they like feel pulled, right? Because when you pull them back into the world and you say like, hey, join us over here. We're playing cards or we're playing games. They actually go through like a withdrawal, almost like a hard circuit, like I have to put my phone down. I can't go plug it in. And the thing, I am so ultra conscious. I have a digital drawer when everybody walks into the house, the kids, it's drop your phones here. It's your charging drawer. The drawer locks, it's there. You can, if you need to call your parents, you can, but we don't have your phone in your hand for 3 hours, and that's the way the phone was designed. And it's not our fault that we're being hacked, and our kids are getting hacked. We're getting hacked. And we just, to be a super high achiever or just to be and live in homeostasis and be in your happy place, you just have to counter that every day. Every single day you have to counter it by the daily dose.
It's so powerful, right? And it's a scary environment, and we're seeing it. And the funny thing is I think a lot of people are like, hey, it's just the kids. And I'm like, I don't think it's just the kids. Like I see a lot of people on Facebook that I know, and I'm like, hey, listen, like the things that you post aren't really anything like your life. It's like, hey, I'm going to dress up and play like, it's like this digiphrenia where you're like, it's almost like a schizophrenic life. Like, hey, online, I'm this person.
different personality. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And at home, I'm dealing with all these issues, which is, no one's ever actually seeing because they can't actually be their authentic self online because maybe people would stop watching. I don't know why. But, at the end of the day, it's a scary environment. And, I was dealing, my oldest is almost 25. And I can remember 7, 8 years ago when, a couple of him and his buddies at 17 years old are sitting on a couch and I walk in and I'm like, hey, have you guys thought about food? And they said nothing. And then they're like texting to each other from one sofa to the other, like, hey, you want pizza? Like, and I'm like, wait a minute, are you guys texting each other? And they're like, well, you asked us what we wanted. And I'm like, yeah, like we could talk about it. Like I'm like, give me your phones right now. Like, I'm not having this, man. And I'm like, you can't even talk to someone. I think the other thing that I've seen is a real scary environment for our kids. And your children are a little younger than mine. You have one that's kind of my child's age. And it's the fact that there's a boldness in the conversation that people will have online that they would never say in person. Like there are things that, we're going back to the junior high dance where all the boys, are holding up walls because like, oh my gosh, interact with a girl and face the fact that I might have to cross a room, ask beautiful Crystal to dance and she's going to say no. And my whole being of confidence, everything is shot. Right. But behind the phone, it's like, hey, they'll ask all sorts of stuff. And it's like, wait, what? Like you would never go up to somebody and ask them that in person. And I feel that's extremely unhealthy. I don't know if there's a name for that because I want to come up with a name for that. Like, I don't know if it's digiconfidence. I don't know what it is, but it's like, it's scary.
One of my daughter's club teams, her coach, her club, the whole club wide, they have a no cell phone policy. So when they're in the weekend tournaments, it's no cell phone, right? So because they talk about like, remember those great games, like the times that you bond with your team is in between the games.
Yeah. And
when you're on the road together and when you're doing these things and sitting, and having your sandwiches in between the game and talking about and all that stuff. And that, if a coach isn't conscious, that doesn't happen anymore because everybody will go right back into their phone. So it is a strict and no practice. There's no phone in practice and there's no phone in our tournaments. Because we have, and when you're back to basics, this is our meeting spot. This is where the parents are. You know what I mean? We just do the old school. And I really like the club for that reason, because they're acknowledging, the importance of sports and some of the great things that come from sports and kids learning. And, you all have to kind of be on the same page to get the phones out of their hands.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that, when you think about like coming back on, I think there's a lot of coaches that can't model that, right?
That's right.
They almost are the same people like, man, I can't wait till we get back to the bus because I've got, I've got 4 likes to my post this morning and I got, some people I got to text and, and
that's the thing about phubbing. If you don't want to phub your kids, teach your kid that word because chances are you're phubbing them.
Yeah.
When you're in the kitchen, you're finishing up a thing and they're like, Dad, I want to tell you about my day. And like, okay, hold on. I got to finish. And then if you teach them that term phubbing, and you make it a culture in your house, they will hold you to it as well as you holding them to it. So our policy is cell phone time is fine. But if we're in the room, our phones are down. If you're so you need to treat your phone just like you would a traditional phone. You need to excuse yourself and go make that text, make that phone call. Okay, I'll be right back. Because it's not fair. And your brain, when you're on your phone, it's like you're on pot. Okay. Your response, you're like, huh? What?
Yeah.
So they've tested that. They put the phone in your hand and they've done it with driving as well, that your response is worse than you're on pot. So why would you wouldn't smoke pot and be with your family? So why would you be on your phone and be with your family?
Wow. That's powerful right there, right? Like what's happening. So let's kind of come back to, there's a lot of challenge. I mean, you look at the alcohol challenge for you and things that were coming into your life, these addictive things were really in your life. I mean, by 20, right? I mean, it's really starting.
And our kids even younger now with the phones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So we're teaching them about addiction early.
Yeah. Now you go in and fight this thing for, I mean, This isn't an overnight, like, oh, I figured this all out. Like, and I mean, you go 20 plus years in this battle. Is that fair?
Yes, it is. My life was filled with a lot of blank spaces. I struggled for a long time, but my life from the outside. So physically, I'm this yoga instructor. I'm winning, fitness competitions. Physically, I look great. Emotionally, I was dying. And it took my friend's suicide. It was really what put me over the edge. And same thing, she was full scholarship to ASU and committed suicide. And I never really processed that. But yeah, I went 20 years with an addiction to alcohol and then pills and then pain pills and then more pills and back and forth. And it's nuts, most diseases, let's just say all diseases are progressive. So you don't just wake up one day with diabetes, right?
Yeah.
This is a slow progressive disease. Alcoholism is not a problem until it's a problem.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of people around me, enablers. I had a lot of help with my kid, but it wasn't until I saw my daughter, saw my friend lose, they either end up in jail, dead, or you lose your civil rights, and where you can't drive your kid anymore.
Yep.
Like you can't drive your kid to school, right? Yep. Or if you went away to rehab, then maybe you went to jail, then maybe you came back. I'm watching housewives that look just like me. This happened to, and they call it the Yets. And, Arizona used to be very tolerant, and then it went to a no tolerant state. And then Uber just extended that. So what? You can Uber, you can drive, and drinking laws and license started to open up everywhere. So now they're at the country club. So you can drink while your kid's at a swim lesson. Now you can drink while you're at the grocery store. Now you can drink, while you're watching a dance lesson. And then you can just Uber home. So if you're not breaking any laws, are you breaking the laws? So this slowly, I created this life that caged me and slowly snuck up on me until it was just a problem, and then, husband's traveling all the time and you're raising kids and you deserve it. And this mommy wine culture that is just out there, and it is good for nobody,
I mean, I think one of the things that you just hit on this is like, it's all progressive. And I feel like it's one of the things that we've really missed. It's one of the things that we've really missed in our culture, because, it's funny that, there's a certain person that would go, hey, listen, I'm a progressive. Yeah, you are. Like, we are enabling this behavior at an age that makes no logical sense, because it's like we forgot that it is a progressive downfall. These little decisions, again, back to that kinetic, it's going to affect this chain. It's going to affect this chain. It's going to affect this chain. And then, and then it keeps happening, and it has on a larger scale. And, no one's going to ever argue with like, no, I'll always just need 3 drinks a day, and that's all I'll ever need. Like, so you won't. Then you'll need 4. Then you'll need 5. Then, like, it's always been progressive, and in both a good and bad way, right? Like, in your health and fitness, if you just did the same workout, you don't get the same result after 2 months. You've got to mix it up. You've got to progress that. It has to be progressive, and you have to challenge that body, right? Because physiologically, it won't adapt if it has nothing to adapt to. And so we're in this, and I just feel like, we're letting, I had a guy on my show named Jim Ayers, and Jim was a former president of Amway, and he's like, man, the book I hate is Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Like, hey man, it's all small stuff, and you better be watching all of it. Like, because these little things, like, you just don't do and just decide like, oh, that's not important. Like, one day it's going to be. One day it's going to be a problem. One day it's going to be this big problem. And, as a parent, I always saw this with kids. Like, if we had like this little thing and we didn't nip it, we were like, oh my gosh, we're just too tired to deal with it. Then my little mouse-sized problem came back as a laptop-sized problem. And then I didn't want to deal with that either. And so it came back as my desk-sized problem, 2 months later. And then it's back 2 months later as a room-sized problem. And now the next one's a house-sized problem. And I'm like going, I don't know if I can bail you out of jail. Like, what are we talking about? Because I've ignored all these little steps that the signs are there. And when you say progressive, I was always reminded of like To Catch a Predator, right? When they do these things on the show, and it's like, hey, the pastor didn't just show up today and get online and offer a 6-pack to a 12-year-old. Like, there's a bunch of little things that happen along the way, and somebody ignored all of it, right? And that person particularly for sure, but it's progressing.
Yeah, it is. And it's like what they say, like for the pilot, if you're leaving LAX and you're 1 degree off heading for JFK, you're going to end up in the ocean. So having
you land in DC, actually. Yeah. You land in DC.
To have a very clear, ethical, financial, spiritual plan of where you're going, it makes those decisions easy. Like you were saying, the high achievers, like it's easy to go through invitations for me and be like, no, I don't go anywhere without purpose, unless I have purpose to be there. And I'm fully sure that I should be there. Do I go? It's not just about, because I got stuff to do.
Yeah.
And, automating your breakfast, automating habit stacking those good things. And just because when you're tired, you'll fall back to your habits. So if you have good habits, like every time I wash my car, I get gas. I'm never getting gas in a random gas place because my life, it just doesn't, I don't have to. It's always full. And if I leave town or I leave my bubble, I always know I have enough gas, for example, and people running out of gas, like when they go, I got to get gas or electric car, or whatever. I'm always like, that's such amateur hour. Like, you rookie, just stop, get off the field, just stop playing. Just show up.
It's one of the things that many people don't understand about to be elite, right? Like they're thinking like, it's the small things, I want to hear, what you would recommend. I mean, you got people hurting out there, and I want to end with two things. One is the quote or something that you read, something you go back to that levels you right away to get you back to the daily dose, to get you back. I mean, like, hey, I'm a little bit off the line. I don't want to land in DC. Like, hey, we need to get that 1 degree back and get it back on course for New York, right? So is there something that, you really is like a go-to for you?
Every day. It's if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
And that's it. You just when you read it, you got to review everything on your schedule immediately and go, why am I doing this? Like, don't need this in my life. No,
I don't. I'm so systematic already that I don't even have those decisions in my, in my world anymore, because I used to have, after I stopped having alcohol noise, which took me a while to settle down, then I had food noise. But now if you it's just easy, keep it simple. God made foods. Like if you go to a restaurant, like, oh, what should I have? What should I have? No, I have the same thing every time. You know what I mean? If you just stick to your principles and your basics, go work out as soon as you drop the kids. So if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything,
I love that.
Pretty much applies to everything.
Yeah. And I love that. I've seen a lot of people struggle with holding a standard. And listen, and I have a lot of admiration for people, even where I don't agree with their standard. I'm like, okay with the fact, like, hey, I really wouldn't live my life to that standard. Right. And I'm okay. But I admire that they're staying on it, like
I do too.
Yeah. And so
yes. And
yeah, go ahead. Well, how about one thing for our guests? I have a quote that I thought about as I was thinking about interviewing you today, but go ahead.
Yeah. So the quote is, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And then back to the daily dose. And the daily dose is water, sleep, food, nutrition, movement, and connection. And those turn on all your natural chemicals. And once you master that, you can master anything. So first master yourself, and then you can master anything in life and become a high achiever. The sky's the limit.
Let's go down that list again. Water, sleep, food.
Water, sleep, food, connection, and movement. Connection with the higher power and yourself and others. So there's 3 types of connection. Like, have you put your feet in the grass today? Did you reach out to somebody? And
I'm going to run down that and do that right after the show, by the way. I am running down and put my feet in the grass. It's like 70 something here. I don't know what to do with myself in Indianapolis because we've been in an ice storm for 3 days. And self, higher power. And what was the other connection?
Others. So if you just, if sometimes if you have something running around in your head and you just call up somebody else and you say, how are you? Yeah. Like it pops you out of your head right away. Like get out of yourself, because you got to break the loop.
When I've struggled with the winter doldrums, like one of the things, like we have a big snow and I literally go across the street and shovel my neighbor's driveway because I just feel like I got to do something for somebody. Like I'm so stuck in my own mired trash, right? like it's not good. And I got to connect to somebody else. And I just, when you're connecting to someone else and serving someone else, it's always brought me back that connection and leveled me. As I was thinking, Crystal, as I think about we've known for a week that we were going to do this. So, I really thought of this quote: each day you choose whether to work towards a goal or not. When you decide to do it every day, then growth is inevitable. And that's by Oli Senditas. And man, I just thought, like, it's simple, right? Like, hey, listen, here's my goal. It's simple. This is what I'm going for. Right. Like, but it's easy to get distracted, So for those folks out there, like, hey, Crystal, first of all, thanks for coming aboard. I'm so happy to have you on the show. And for folks that are listening, I mean, decide out there. You got to decide what you're going to quit. Get your daily dose. Get it going. Like, just with the stuff of technology alone, I'm changing things already in my life. Like, it's awesome. So thank you, Crystal, so much for being with us. Thrilled we could do this together, and looking forward to seeing you next time.
Okay. Thanks, Trent.
Rebellious Infusions are organic flavored water enhancers. Rebellious provides clean, focused energy in liquid packets. Just tear the corner of the packet and pour 16 ounces of water. Rebellious Infusions have no sugar, no calories, and up to 300 milligrams of antioxidants and loads of L-theanine for brain health. Rethink your drink at drinkrebellious.com. For 10% off of your next purchase, use the code 99999. Do you want to be our next guest? Or do you have inspiring stories to share? Or do you love to inspire, support, and empower thought leaders? Feel free to send Trent a direct message on Instagram or Facebook at Leadershipity.